Barbie dolls are not the major influence on young girls anymore, but there is intense pressure on young women to be hot and sexy and on young men to rack up some sexual conquests. Dr. David McKenzie is a sex therapist and couples counselor who joins us once a month to talk about relationships and all they entail. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. David McKenzie back to Studio 4 to tell us more.
Hi.
Good morning. I forgot to ask Elaine Tanner when she was here if she was the one on Front Page Challenge that Gordon Sinclair asked about her period on national TV, if that affected her swimming. And you did, and she said, it was me.
Yeah, my father, who's a Scotsman, never forgave Gordon Sinclair for that question. He thought that was just the rudest question to ask.
I'm sure. Well, especially young 17-year-old girl, national television,
Absolutely.
you know, please don't bring that up.
Unbelievable.
Teenage sex.
Yeah.
Well, much has changed since 40 years ago.
When you and I were kids.
Yes. We were.
Let's go there, Fanny.
I'd like to go there. I was an aging child. 40, 50 years ago, the Waltons and, you know, June Ward and Bieber and Mary Tyler Moore.
Well, actually, our generation was the sexual revolution. We actually changed the end results of the Victorian age, so our generation's credited with that. Yeah.
But our kids have grown up with, with Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana, and Madonna, and YouTube, and being bombarded with racy pictures. They can find anything about sex if they want to. We had to go into the parents' drawer, get that book.
It's an interesting phenomenon. In North America, I've heard and read people referring to it as a sexualized culture. Yet in Europe, sex is much more celebrated and open. And so my bishop, Michael Ingham, when I was a priest, was telling me that he went to Europe with the young people and noticed that the girls there wear very short skirts, they're very provocative. And the bishop went up to one of the church leaders and said, my young people are astounded that your young people dress like this. He says, in Europe we have a much more open, free attitude towards sex. We're not uptight about it. But here in North America, we're extremely guarded, very protective, always paranoid. There's, a pedophile lurking around every corner. And Judith Levine, a feminist writer, has written a book called Harmful to Minors, The Perils of Protecting Your Children from Sex. And in that book, she talks about, especially American culture, how it's so protective of children and actually has made them into asexual beings, which is dangerous because the Bush administration spent $1.3 billion in the last 8 years to promote abstinence-only teaching, which has been shown by the literature and the research not to work. In abstinence-only districts, teenage pregnancies are off the charts and STI transmissions are the same. In districts where they teach abstinence plus safer sex, teenage pregnancies are less than, I think, 2%, and STI transmission is almost non-existent.
So you can say abstinence, no sex before marriage? Is that the
idea? That's the abstinence-only theory.
Well, what if you never get married?
Well, Fanny, you always throw these monkey wrenches in.
Well, that could be a pretty dull life, don't you think?
Well, that's
anyway, abstinence is an option, but as we know, and as the statistics say, most teenagers are going to go there.
You bet. It's not working.
So if you had a modern-day teen and you want to raise a male or a female who is comfortable with their sexuality and embraces sexuality and realizes it's a beautiful thing, what do you tell them about the birds and the bees?
First of all, you need to feel comfortable about your own sexuality. The best teacher is your own comfort. And so your children will pick up at a subliminal level how you feel about your own gender, your own sexuality. If you're uptight about that, your kids are going to pick that up. You don't need to say a word. If you're waiting for the teens to talk to your children about sex, you may as well go and watch a movie. Your teens know way more about it by 13 than you ever dreamed they did. And so it is answering your children's questions about sex in an honest manner, using the right language, but not giving them more information than they need to know. And when they, as they are more open about it and ask questions and you are open, sex education is already happening.
So you suggest you should not sit them down for the chat? Did you have a chat with your parents, the chat?
Not really, no.
Mine tried.
Yeah.
Your eyes are glazing over. You already know all of that.
Yeah.
And it was really more rules.
Yeah, it was embarrassing for me more than anything. They were telling me stuff I already knew, and it was just embarrassing.
Okay, but if you have young men, it's about more than wear a condom.
Oh, yes, of course it is. It's about teaching respect for others, about respecting the other gender, about respecting yourself. It's about making sure that boundaries are honored and they're not crossed without permission. It's about relationship as well as sexuality.
Sure. How to say no if you're a girl.
Especially.
And most mothers have difficulty explaining that, how to say no.
I'm not so sure about
Really?
that. Oh, no. I'm noticing a generation of younger women whose daughters are growing up to be much more centered in their femininity, who are celebrating. I mean, I've heard of one young woman, actually she'd be about 45, when her 12-year-old got her first period, her first menses, they actually had a celebratory dinner, the whole family, they're Italian. They had a celebratory dinner. She's now entered into womanhood. What a great way to celebrate womanhood. You know, I realize that periods aren't that much fun for a lot.
But there are signs, I'm sure, that your child is sexually active, and every parent wrestles with how snoopy to be.
Yeah.
You know, how should you let them be private? Should you allow them to have sex in your home? They're 16. They're obviously doing it.
Yeah. That really is a value judgment call of the family. I know some parents said that we'd rather have the children in our home knowing where they are rather than out somewhere else, doing it in an unsafe place. You mentioned another thing.
Well, really just that. Are you endorsing, like if you're against it, but you know they're doing it.
Yeah. You have, a parent has
I've heard parents say, but then that means I endorse it. Well, it doesn't matter if you endorse it or not, Mom and Pop, they're doing it.
Yeah, oh, they definitely are. Not all, but many of them are.
But in this day of HIV, AIDS, and sexually transmitted disease, what's really important is safer sex.
What's come out now in the literature is that teens, because they are having more spontaneous sex from time to time, are more faithful in using condoms than adults in their 20s. Because in the 20s, they start getting into longer-term relationships, and in longer-term relationships, they become relaxed about condom use. And so actually HIV and STI transmission is rising, and also unwanted pregnancies in the 20 to 30 group.
When you have the chat about intimacy and love and try and connect that with sex, what should you say? I
don't think sex always has to be connected with love and marriage and commitment. Sex can stand alone, but it always has to be connected with non-coerciveness, non-manipulation, respect of the other's boundaries, yes and no. I believe according to your value system, and that has to be respected. If you believe that love and sex go together, you have an obligation to share your value system with your child. But there are other views on sexuality. They don't always need to be linked to commitment and marriage and love.
And if you have a young man and you want him to respect women and to value women, and not think of a woman as a sexual conquest.
Yes, what's the question?
What should you say to a young man today? Because women are equal.
Right. I believe that the values of that young man holds towards other human beings will come out in the sexual relationship. If that child does not have respect for people at 5 and 7 and 8 years of age, by the time he's 13, 14, 15, that lack of respect is going to come out towards others, not just women. So it's you know, the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old he won't depart from it. I believe that that kind of training starts from the very beginning. So if a child is already respecting other people, that will follow into the sex life.
Sure, and if they witness it, if the father respects the mother.
Absolutely.
Or the mother respects the father, and you grow up with that, you get a sense it's a good way to be. If you're not raised in the perfect little family, with the perfect little parents, it's tougher.
Of course it is. What you basically voiced there is family systems theory, that if mom and dad have it together, the rest of the family can relax and it's a working family.
Exactly.
When mom and dad don't have it together, it becomes dysfunctional.
Sure, I remember saying to my girls, if you sleep with him, it will make you more vulnerable. Well, that was my opinion.
Make who more vulnerable?
You,
yes.
The person who's involved. It will make you more vulnerable in the relationship. It does. If you just have a, you know, kiss goodnight, it's not. But when a woman or a girl goes there, you're more vulnerable. You are. Because you've had a sexual relationship with another. I think.
I think you're right. Female sexuality is more complex than male.
Well, sure. If they dump you the next day and you've slept with them, that's a tough night.
Well, but there are also lots of women out there that are only looking for one-night stands. Not all women want relationships. Like Dr. Rosemary Basson says, you know, a woman goes through a whole cascade of thoughts before she decides to sleep with a guy.
Right.
You know,
and apparently we open the door.
Yes, the new studies come out showing that actually women are the ones who actually are responsible for whether the guy goes for you or not. Interesting.
Sure, and there are some women who have friends with benefits.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, there are. Yeah. And like to sleep with a variety of mates. Yeah. There are others who are not interested in that. Yeah. And some who are bisexual. Mm-hmm. And the whole area of bisexuality, is it a new category? Some therapists say the world's bisexual. Mm. Others say no.
Depends what you mean by bisexual.
Well, how do you define it?
Well, it's not if you kiss your girlfriend. If you're a girl and you kiss your girlfriend at a party and you're drunk, that now you're bisexual. Yeah. Nor does it mean that if you have a sexual encounter, either male or female with the same gender, you're bisexual. It means if there's an inner pattern of fairly equal attraction to both genders. Now, I think it's Lisa McDonald of Utah University, just came out with a new research study in January. And the literature is not supporting the notion that young women are just going into this fad and they all go through it eventually. What she has noticed is that it's now becoming seen as a third orientation. And that women who identify as bisexual, an equal number, I think 5% go towards hetero, and an equal number go towards being lesbian, but 90% stay identified as bisexual. 0.9% of males and 0.5% of females identify as bisexual.
More males are bisexual.
According to the
stats.
According to the Social Organization of Sexuality, the largest study done since Kinsey.
And fewer females.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Very much.
Yeah.
Because I've never figured out, not being a scientist, what determines our sexuality to that degree.
Well,
are we born? I feel that we're born gay or straight. I really do.
Yeah. I think it's a complex.
A fanny theory.
Oh, that's fine. I think it's a complex intermixture of social construction as well as genes and congenital stuff. But I think the bisexuality is something which is an orientation.
So if you were bisexual by definition, you would be as turned on to a male as you are to a female? Same rush, same turn on, same desire?
Everybody is different, and some may have a slight tendency towards the same gender as opposed to the other, but it's roughly in that ballpark of getting equal satisfaction out of both genders.
It'd be difficult as a parent if your child is bisexual or your child is gay and you're straight to relate. Do you see what I mean? Now you're going to talk to your child about sexual relations, or your teenager or your 17-year-old, and they're same sex. They have a same-sex partner.
But if you yourself are already comfortable and inclusive of all sexuality, then that child will pick that up at an early age. But if you're coming out with language that, puts gays down and lesbians, your child will pick that up.
So if you're not comfortable, and many people aren't, as you know, that's why you're in business.
That's right. Part of it.
Part of it. You know what I mean?
I understand.
And if it's just, you're just not, you're hung up.
Yeah.
How do you get unhung up?
I think you have to have an encounter with yourself. I think a lot of the issues that arise for us stem from early childhood, from the attachment or lack thereof with our primary caregiver, usually our mother, which determines later adult attachment styles, which comes out in the person we choose.
Right.
But sex never stands alone. It's always connected to other issues. And most of those issues are intrapersonal within us. They start to become interpersonal in relationships. But that's why when I do couple counseling, it's important to get family of origin and to dig deep to find out what's driving this. Why do you not want to be in touch with your body? Why do you not want to have sex with your partner? What's that all about? And it often goes back to deep abandonment issues, deep shaming from one's past, deep religious shaming as well.
So you can try to get out of it by reading a book, but most likely a good counselor, somebody to take you through it, to help you feel comfortable in your sexual shoes.
Absolutely. Books are helpful. The problem is they don't hold your feet to the fire. And most people, hate to say it, but they don't have the self-discipline to follow what the books are saying.
Right. Yeah. Globe and Mail today, headline reads, "Sexy Time All the Time." Apparently, there's a new book out, a memoir, about a woman who gave to her husband a present for the year, and that was sex, hot sex, every day of the year. They must be exhausted.
Well, that's not an. It's interesting as couples get older. I find a switch in terms of the sexual desire, that women are having greater desires than their male partners.
Well, I want to read this one because it sounds like it's 365 Nights, a memoir of intimacy.
I'm going to run right out and buy
Charles
it.
Mueller and Betsy Thorpe. A year of regular and unlimited sex to her husband Brad as a 40th birthday present.
Wow.
See? Look at you light up.
Fanny, that's fantastic.
Well, what a great present.
I'm going to ask my wife if she would think of that birthday.
I think that's a possibility. You better go straight to the bookstore.
You bet. Yeah, yeah. I better start jogging.
Yes.
And taking lots of vitamins.
I'm thinking vitamins, minerals, whatever helps. Okay. Nice to see you
Always
again.
a pleasure.
You come back, we'll talk more about relationships.
Sure.
Fine. Dr. David McKenzie. And coming up, I'm afraid that suit with the shoulder pads and your tie-dyed flared jeans are going to have to go to a good home. JC Studios gives us a spring fashion show next.